"You think I'm lazy? Are you calling me useless?" she snapped. "My mother never worked a day in her life, and neither does your mother. Are you saying they are lazy too?" "But they don't spend like you do," Tolu replied, trying to keep his voice calm. "You spend more in a day than I earn." Once upon a time, in the lively city of Ibadan, located in the west of Nigeria, there lived a man named Chief Daniel. He was not just any man. He was incredibly wealthy and wise, and everyone in town looked up to him for advice on big matters. Chief Daniel was also known for his big heart. He loved helping those who didn't have much, and because of his kindness, people all around loved and admired him greatly. Chief Daniel had a beautiful family with 3 children named Tolu, Kemi, and Ayo. Tolu, his only son, held a special place in his parents' hearts. Both Chief Daniel and his wife, Funke, worked tirelessly to teach him good manners and kindness, hoping he would grow up just to be like his father. The family was blessed with enough wealth to send all their children to the best schools abroad. As years rolled on, Tolu finished his studies and chose to live abroad instead of returning to Ibadan. This worried his parents greatly. Tolu was now 32 years old, still unmarried, and had not yet taken steps to start handling his father's vast business, a business he was expected to lead one day. His parents knew that for the business and Tolu's future to be secure, he needed to learn the ropes and start taking responsibility. Realizing the urgency of the situation, Chief Daniel and Funke started urging Tolu more and more to come back home. They wanted him to understand the importance of his role in the family business and to take up the mantle his father would one day pass down to him. They hoped that Tolu would feel the pull of home and return to step into the shoes waiting just for him, right where he belonged. After much talking and many heartfelt letters, Tolu finally decided to come back home to Ibadan. His parents, Chief Daniel and Funke, were overjoyed to see him after so long. They had missed him terribly and had many hopes for his future. The very first thing on their list was for Tolu to get married. They believed that finding a kind and loving partner would make Tolu's life happier and more complete. Tolu's parents wanted him to have someone to share his joys and challenges, especially as he took on more responsibilities in his father's business. Chief Daniel had a very close friend in the community who was a wise and respected lawyer. This friend had a daughter named Shalewa, who was as kind as she was beautiful. From the moment Shalewa was a little girl, Chief Daniel had secretly hoped that one day she might become his son Tolu's wife. He admired her, not just for her beauty, but because she came from a good, caring family and carried herself with grace and elegance. Chief Daniel often talked to his wife Funke about Shalewa's charm and intelligence, believing that she would be the perfect match for Tolu. He knew that Shalewa had grown into a young woman who valued kindness and respect, qualities that Tolu also held dear. In his heart, Chief Daniel was certain that if Tolu and Shalewa could spend some time together, Tolu would come to see all the wonderful traits in Shalewa that he saw. So, when Tolu returned home, Chief Daniel saw a perfect opportunity. He planned a special dinner, inviting his lawyer friend and his family, hoping that Tolu and Shalewa would get to know each other better. The night was filled with laughter and stories, and Tolu couldn't help but notice Shalewa's gentle manner and bright smile. As the evening went on, Tolu found himself enjoying Shalewa's company more and more. After dinner, Tolu and Shalewa found themselves walking together in the garden, enjoying the cool evening breeze. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Tolu gathered his courage and asked Shalewa if she would like to go out with him. Shalewa smiled warmly and agreed, making Tolu's heart leap with joy. On their date, Shalewa arrived looking even more beautiful than Tolu remembered. Her dress swirled around as she moved, and her smile lit up the evening. Tolu was completely enchanted. Shalewa's kindness and laughter filled the air, making every moment feel special. They quickly discovered shared interests and joys, from their favorite food to stories about their childhoods. Shalewa enjoyed shopping, so they spent many afternoons exploring the colorful markets and stylish shops. Tolu loved seeing how happy it made her, picking out clothes and beautiful things. Their days were filled with laughter and new adventures, making them feel closer with each passing moment. To Shalewa, Tolu was not only handsome, but also came from a respected and wealthy family, which was very important to her. They clicked so naturally, as if they had been friends for years. Tolu was head over heels in love with Shalewa, and it wasn't long before both their families noticed how perfect they were for each other. Seeing their happiness, the families soon began planning a wedding. Chief Daniel, thrilled to see his son so in love, decided to throw a grand party to celebrate Tolu and Shalewa's union. It was a lavish affair with music, dancing, and joy, making a perfect beginning to Tolu and Shalewa's life together. Chief Daniel, wanting to give Tolu and Shalewa the best start in their new life, surprised them with a magnificent wedding gift. A beautiful, newly built house that was fully furnished and decorated. Each room was thoughtfully designed to be cozy and welcoming, perfect for the young couple to build their future. Tolu and Shalewa were overjoyed when they saw the house. It was more than they had ever dreamed of, complete with a lovely garden and a view that caught the golden sunset each evening. The couple felt incredibly grateful and lucky to have such a wonderful place to call their own. It was a fantastic beginning to their married life, filled with happiness and the promise of many joyful years ahead. A few weeks after their wedding, Tolu began to notice something about Shalewa that concerned him. She had a habit of spending lots of money, more than he had realized before they were married. Shalewa loved to keep up with the latest trends and she spent hours each day scrolling through social media to see what was new and fashionable. Whenever she found something she liked, which was often, she would head out to the mall to shop, whether it was clothes, accessories, or home decor. Shalewa seemed to be buying something new all the time. This worried Tolu, as their expenses began to climb higher than and he wondered how to talk to Shalewa about her spending without upsetting her. He wanted them to plan for the future together, but to do that, they needed to manage their money wisely. Tolu grew up watching his father, Chief Daniel, manage wealth with a careful and thoughtful approach. Chief Daniel never lived extravagantly. He believed in saving for the future and investing wisely. This was a lesson Tolu had taken to heart, which is why Shalewa's spending habits started to worry him deeply. In hopes of finding a solution, Tolu thought it might help if Shalewa could have her own income. Since she was a trained accountant, Tolu was confident he could use his family's connection to help her find a good job. This way, she could earn and spend her money as she wished, which seemed fair to Tolu. However, when Tolu suggested this idea, Shalewa reacted angrily. "You think I'm lazy? Are you calling me useless?" she snapped. "My mother never worked a day in her life, and neither does your mother. Are you saying they are lazy too?" "But they don't spend like you do," Tolu replied, trying to keep his voice calm. "You spend more in a day than I earn. If this continues, we will run into serious money problem." Shalewa was upset by this. "So what? You want me to wear the same outfits over and over? You want my friends to laugh at me because I married a rich man, but now I can't show it. No, Tolu, your plan will not work." With that, she stormed out of the room. Tolu sat down, feeling overwhelmed. He had never expected to see this side of Shalewa. She not only spent excessively, but also refused to help with household chores, relying on their hired help for everything. Why Tolu's mother didn't work outside their home. She took pride in managing their household and contributing in her own way. Tolu felt trapped in his dilemma. He loved Shalewa deeply, but her behavior was straining their marriage. Despite his concerns, Tolu decided to remain patient. He loved his wife and hoped that with time, they could find a way to address their issues together. For now, he chose to keep peace and think about the best way to gently help Shalewa understand the value of money and the importance of working together as partners in their new life. One morning, as Tolu was getting ready for work, Shalewa approached him with a serious look on her face. "Tolu, I need to talk to you about something important," she said. Sensing the gravity of the matter, Tolu sat down, ready to listen. "I think we should consider having our children through surrogacy," Shalewa stated plainly. Tolu, puzzled, asked, "Why? Do you have health issues that make pregnancy risky for you?" "No, it's not about health," Shalewa replied. "I don't just want my body to change. You know how having a baby can alter your shape." Tolu was stunned and struggled to find his words. He regretted sitting down to hear her out. "This is unbelievable, Shalewa. Are you really saying this? Why would you even think like that?" he exclaimed in disbelief. "Your father has plenty of money. And look at my friends. Their husbands aren't as wealthy as us, yet they can afford surrogacy. I want that too," she insisted, standing her ground firmly. Tolu was overwhelmed with frustration and anger. He left the house without another word and drove off to work. As he drove, he reflected on his marriage and realized that he might have made a significant mistake. Shalewa's love for luxury and reluctance to contribute meaningfully to their life together were red flags he had initially overlooked. Before they got married, when he had inquired about her career plans, she had been vague, always figuring things out. Tolu had hoped to help her find direction, perhaps start a business together after their wedding, but she had dismissed the idea immediately. It became clear that Shalewa had a history of being supported by wealthy men, a lifestyle she was not ready to give up. Tolu felt trapped in a marriage with someone who seemed to have no intention of changing her ways or working towards shared goals. As he continued to drive, he pondered over the difficult choices that lay ahead and how he could address the growing rifts in their relationship. One afternoon, while Tolu was busy at work, his phone beeped with an alert. He had just been charged 10 million naira. The shock made him restless, and as soon as his workday ended, he rushed home, filled with anger. When he arrived, he found Shalewa happily unpacking an array of new clothes and jewelry, her attention fixed on what she was doing. "Tolu, look at this dress. What do you think about it?" "It's only a couple $1,000, Shalewa exclaimed, showing him a lavish red gown. Shalewa's casual remark about the expensive dress only fueled Tolu's frustration. "Shalewa, what the hell is going on?" he shouted, his voice filled with disbelief and anger. "I don't understand," she replied, feigning ignorance about the situation. Tolu sat down heavily on the bed, his hands cradling his head. "You spent 10 million naira on all this stuff. What have I done to deserve this? Do you realize that we are running out of money? How are we supposed to invest and save if you keep spending money like this? One day, we might end up begging on the streets, and I won't let that happen. Just because of 10 million naira. You're being insensitive," Shalewa retorted sharply. "My friend is getting married in Dubai, and everyone is going. I need to be there, and I need to appear classy." Tolu's frustration reached a boiling point. "You've been on over 4 trips in less than 6 months. I earn the money, and I don't even spend as much as you do. Must you go to every event? You're driving me on the edge. You refuse to work. You won't consider having children naturally, and all you do is spend. I can't take this anymore." With that, Tolu stormed out of the house, his mind swelling with disappointment and helplessness. He drove straight to his parents' house, seeking comfort and advice. He felt overwhelmed and unsure of how to mend the widening rifts in his marriage or manage the financial chaos that seemed to grow with each passing day. Back at his parents' house, Tolu found Chief Daniel sitting in his favorite armchair, reading the newspaper. His mother, Funke, was in the kitchen, humming a tune as she prepared dinner. The familiar smells and sounds of his childhood home instantly made Tolu feel a bit better, but his heart was heavy with worry. "Tolu, my son, what brings you here looking so troubled?" Chief Daniel asked, setting his newspaper aside. Tolu sighed deeply and sat down next to his father. Dad, I don't even know where to begin. Shalewa, she spends money so carelessly. She wants us to have children through surrogacy because she doesn't want to change her shape. I feel like I'm living in a stranger in hell. I'm so frustrated. Chief Daniel listened carefully, his face a mask of concern. Funke joined them, wiping her hands on her apron. "Oh, my dear boy," she said softly, reaching out to hold Tolu's hand. "Marriage can be a tough journey, and Shalewa is a very young girl. You know, she may be going through stages. You both must be willing to work it together. Share the load. You know young girls of nowadays with these modern trends." "I know, Mom, but I don't think Shalewa sees things the way I do. She's focused on her social image and luxury, not our future or the kind of family I hoped we would build." Chief Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Tolu, perhaps it's time for some tough decisions. You and Shalewa need to have a serious talk about your values and expectations. If she truly loves you, she will understand and try to compromise. But what if she doesn't, Dad? What if she refuses to change?" Tolu asked, the worry clear in his voice. "That is a bridge you will cross when you get there. But first, try to reach her heart. Explain your fears about the future and how you envision your life together. Give her a chance to see things from your perspective," Chief Daniel advised. Tolu knew his father was right. He needed to have an open and honest conversation with Shalewa, no matter how difficult it might be. He decided to go back home after dinner and speak to her, hoping she would listen and understand. That evening, as Tolu drove home, he practiced over and over what he would say to Shalewa. He carefully picked each word, hoping to share his feelings without starting another argument. When Tolu arrived, he found Shalewa lounging by the pool, her eyes glued to her phone screen. "Shalewa, can we talk?" he asked softly, sitting next to her. She looked up, her face showing no emotion. "What is it now, Tolu?" she asked with a sigh. "Let's go inside," he suggested, and she reluctantly agreed. Once indoors, Tolu took a deep breath and began. "It's about us, our marriage, and what we both envision for our future. I think we need to discuss our lifestyle and find a common ground. It's important that we understand each other and work together." Shalewa put her phone down and turned to face him, nodding for him to continue. "You're spending," Tolu started, but Shalewa quickly interrupted. "What's your problem, Tolu? Isn't all the money your father made meant for spending? Did you marry me just to make me suffer? Is that all this is about? If it is, I don't want to talk." She stormed out of the room, leaving Tolu alone on the sofa, his heart sinking as he reflected on the widening gap between them. Shalewa's behavior seemed to worsen with each passing day. driven by a desire for endless fun and luxury, seemingly careless of their shared future. Feeling desperate, Tolu decided it was time to seek help from her family. He invited Shalewa's parents over, hoping they could help him reach through her, but the meeting proved difficult. Shalewa was stubborn and unyielding. All she wanted was to enjoy life to the fullest, without any thought for the responsibilities and commitments that came with marriage. Her family, it turned out, was the lowest thing on her list of priorities. As Tolu watched Shalewa laugh and dismiss their contents, he realized how challenging the situation had become. Her family tried to speak sense into her, but their words fell on deaf ears. Tolu felt more alone than ever, caught between his love for Shalewa and the stark reality of their differences. He knew something had to change, but the path forward seemed clouded with uncertainty. One quiet evening, the unimaginable happened. Chief Daniel, beloved by all, suffered a heart attack. Despite being rushed to the hospital, he passed away before receiving medical attention. The community of Ibadan, where he had been a pillar of support and kindness, plunged into mourning. Chief Daniel had touched many lives, and his loss was felt deeply by everyone. After the sorrowful farewell of his funeral, Tolu was thrust into the role of CEO of his father's company. It was then that he discovered the dire financial state his father had left behind. The business was not only struggling, but it was drowning in debt. Determined to honor his father's legacy, Tolu resolved to do whatever it took to save the company. However, as he grappled with the failing business, Tolu faced an increasing challenge at home: Shalewa's extravagant spending. Over the years, her habits had only worsened, and despite Tolu's attempts to explain their financial difficulties, she seemed oblivious to the severity of their situation. He felt exhausted and helpless, struggling to communicate the gravity of their circumstances to her. Days turned into nights, filled with stress and worry for Tolu. He would stay up late, poring over the company books and brainstorming strategies to salvage the business. Meanwhile, Shalewa continued to indulge in expensive shopping sprees and social events, seemingly detached from the reality of their financial crisis. Her focus remained on maintaining a glamorous lifestyle, far removed from the pressing needs of Tolu's effort to save his father's legacy. Tolu's frustration grew as he watched the gap between their perceptions widen. The burden of his father's debts and the responsibility of keeping the business afloat weighed heavily on him, while Shalewa's disregard for their financial health made the struggle even lonelier. He knew something had to change drastically if they were to survive this ordeal and preserve what his father had built. One day, Tolu returned from work and found another huge bill and piles of shopping bags and clothes from a shopping spree Shalewa had gone on. He angrily stormed out of the room. "Shalewa, we talked about this. We need to cut down our spending," Tolu pleaded with her, his voice high and filled with desperation. Shalewa flipped her hair and scoffed. "Tolu, I'm not going to dress like a beggar just because the business is doing badly. You need to fix it, not me. We can't appear poor." Hearing this, Tolu felt a sharp pang of sadness. The disconnect between them was palpable. He longed for the loving, supportive family environment in which he had been raised, where values and togetherness were prioritized over material things. Now, standing in the midst of luxury he could barely afford, Tolu felt more alone than ever. His partner, whom he had hoped would stand by him through thick and thin, seemed only concerned with appearances and her own desires. A few weeks later, things took turns for the worse. The bank called Tolu in for a meeting. The business was on the brink of bankruptcy, and they needed to start paying off the debt soon, or they would lose everything. Frightened by the news, Tolu rushed home to talk to Shalewa. He hoped that this would be the wake-up call she needed to finally understand. "Shalewa, we need to talk. It's serious," Tolu said, trying to keep his voice steady. "What now, Tolu?" Shalewa sighed, barely looking up from her phone. "The business is about to go bankrupt. We might lose everything. We need to make some big changes or we are going to be left with nothing," Tolu explained, his words heavy with worry. Shalewa's eyes widened for a moment, but then she shrugged. "Well, if it's that bad, why don't you ask your friends for help? Or sell something? I'm sure you'll figure it out." Tolu couldn't believe her response. "It's not just my responsibility, Shalewa. We are in this together. We are married." Shalewa's response was chilling, her tone dismissive and her expression detached. She stood up, confronting Tolu with a steely gaze. "Look, Tolu, I didn't sign up to be poor and miserable. It's not my fault that your father left behind so much debt. You need to sort this out yourself." With those harsh words, she turned on her heel and left the room, as she often did whenever the conversation turned serious. Tolu was standing alone, the weight of her words sinking in. The stark reality of their situation and the vast difference in their attitudes became painfully clear. He realized that no matter how much he wished for Shalewa to understand and support him through these trying times, she was unwilling to share the burden. In the following months, despite his best efforts, Tolu Daniels was unable to rescue his father's business from its overwhelming debts. The company eventually collapsed, and with it, much of the life Tolu had known disappeared. The financial strain and lifestyle changes proved too much for Shalewa, who left Tolu to marry another man, seeking the comfort of wealth she was accustomed to. Devastated by the loss of both his marriage and his father's business, Tolu found himself in a place of deep pain and sorrow. All that remained was his house, a reminder of better days. In these tough times, his mother, Funke, moved in with him, providing the emotional support he desperately needed. With his mother's encouragement, Tolu started to pick up the pieces of his life. He began job hunting, leaning on the good reputation his father had built over the years. His efforts paid off, and he secured a job that, while not as prestigious or lucrative as running his father's business, provided a steady income and a path to rebuild his life. As Tolu settled into his new role, he focused on healing and growth. With each passing day, he gained more confidence and started to envision a future where he could regain some of what he had lost. He learned valuable lessons about resilience, the importance of supportive relationship, and the need for financial prudence. Slowly but surely, Tolu rebuilt his life, finding strength in the challenges he had overcome. Meanwhile, Shalewa had quickly moved on. She was now a third wife to a wealthy chief in another city. Her father was against it, but her mother pleaded with her husband to allow their daughter to be happy, as she was their only child. Tolu's heart was torn into pieces when he heard the news, but his mother comforted him with many encouraging words. Tolu was a hard-working and focused man. With Shalewa out of his way, he focused on rebuilding his career and getting his father's business back. Shalewa's life with Chief Ayo turned out to be nothing like the fairy tale she had imagined. After their wedding, Chief Ayo showed his true colors. He was strict and mean, not the kind and generous man she thought she had married. Chief Ayo stopped giving Shalewa money to shop and have fun like she used to. She had to learn how to cook and do other house chores by force, as Chief was not willing to pay any domestic staff. He was very controlling and would get angry at her for the smallest things. If she spoke too loudly, didn't answer his calls quickly enough, or even if dinner was 5 minutes late, he would yell and sometimes even scare her by throwing things at her or beating her up, and she dared not talk back at him. Shalewa was walking on eggshells, trying not to make him mad. One of the most painful things for Shalewa was how Chief Ayo took away her phone. She loved scrolling through social media, chatting with her friends and showing off her fancy life. Now, she felt cut off from the world, trapped in a big, lonely house. Chief Ayo also didn't like her going out. He said it was for her safety, but really, he just didn't trust her. She used to go out to big parties, fancy dinners and fun trips, but now she could hardly go to the market without Chief Ayo sending someone to watch her. She missed freedom and felt like she was living in a golden cage. As days turned into weeks, Shalewa felt more and more alone. The other wives of Chief Ayo were too scared to befriend her, each of them dealing with their own fears. The big, beautiful house felt cold and unwelcoming. She spent many nights crying outside, missing Tolu's kindness and patience. Sometimes, when Chief Ayo was away, Shalewa would sit outside and think about the days she spent with Tolu. He had truly cared for her, and even when she was spending too much or asking for outrageous things, he was patient with her and never raised a finger at her. She realized too late that his love was real, unlike the fake life she chased after. One evening, as she sat alone in the dark, listening to the distant thunder, Shalewa said to herself, "I wish I could go back. I would do everything differently." But as the thunder rolled louder, she knew some choices can't be undone. Now, she was left to face the consequences of her actions. One evening, as Tolu was busy in the kitchen making dinner, a knock came at the door. He wasn't expecting anyone, so with curiosity, he hurried to answer it. When he opened the door, his heart leaped with joy. It was Deji, his childhood friend, whom he hadn't seen in over 12 years. The two friends embraced warmly, their laughter filling the air as they caught up on old times. Deji had grown into a successful businessman, a stark contrast to the humble beginnings from which he came. His family had been very poor, and it was Chief Daniel, Tolu's father, who had generously sent Deji abroad to study. Now, a multi-billionaire, Deji had returned to their hometown, having heard about the unfortunate downfall of Chief Daniel's business. As they sat down and delved into deep conversation, Deji shared how grateful he was for all that Chief Daniel had done for him and his family. Moved by a sense of deep gratitude and respect, Deji made a heartfelt offer to Tolu. He promised to repay all the debts Chief Daniel had accrued and to help Tolu restore the family business. "You were a great friend, and your father was a kind man. I owe your family this small token of appreciation. Please, let me do this," Deji insisted earnestly. Tolu was overwhelmed with emotion, tears of relief and joy streaming down his face as he hugged his friend. It was a moment of profound gratitude and a turning point in his life. In the following weeks, Tolu and Deji met with the bank. Thanks to Deji's support and commitment, they were able to settle the outstanding debts and reclaim the family business. Tolu took the helm once again, this time with a renewed spirit and determination. Under his careful management, the business began to thrive. It wasn't long before the Daniels family regained their former glory and even surpassed it, restoring the legacy that Chief Daniel had left behind. This new chapter was not just a testament to Tolu's resilience, but also a shining example of how kindness and generosity can come full circle, changing lives for the better. When Shalewa learned that Tolu's fortunes had turned around, a plan began to form in her mind. Regretting her previous decisions, she thought that returning to Tolu and apologizing might restore the life of luxury she missed. She was convinced that Tolu's love for her would make him forgive her, and they could start anew. She chose a day when her current husband was away on a business trip. Slipping away quietly to Tolu's house, her heart pounded with a mix of nerves and hope as she knocked on the door, only to be greeted not by Tolu, but by a very pretty young woman. "Who are you?" Shalewa demanded, her tone tinged with anger and confusion. The young lady didn't seem to recognize Shalewa either, and as Shalewa was about to inquire further, she heard Tolu's familiar voice from inside. "Honey, who's that?" The word honey struck Shalewa like a blow. Her heart sank as the realization dawned on her. Tolu had moved on. When Tolu appeared at the door, the sight of him, happy and apparently remarried, was too much for Shalewa. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring her vision. Tolu was surprised to see Shalewa, but remained polite. "Shalewa, is everything okay?" he asked, though the concern in his voice was guarded. Unable to speak, Shalewa just nodded, quickly turning away to hide her tears. She had come hoping to rekindle their past, but seeing Tolu so content and in love with someone else, she felt a deep regret for her selfish and careless past behaviors. Walking away from the house, each step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of her mistakes was physically dragging her down. That moment marked the end of Shalewa's hopes of returning to Tolu's life. She had lost a good man due to her own actions, and the reality of her choices settled in painfully as she made her way back to the life she had chosen. Hey besties, Thank you so much for listening to this wonderful story, and I hope you enjoyed it. I would love you to drop your lessons in the comments section. And if you enjoy our stories and you are yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, don't skip this video without hitting the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you get notified whenever we post new stories. Thank you so much for all your support. I appreciate it so much. And I wish you a happy and lovely day. For now, bye and see you in our next story.